Good morning, and welcome to the Thanksgiving Day Parade. It's going to be a great parade today.
Indeed it is. The best, most impressive floats will make their way into Times Square and all over New York.
That's right. Every year, they work so hard to show off the best floats, and this year is no exception.
Once again, you're right. In fact, these are the best floats I think we've ever seen.
Oh, here's one right now.
Wow. Beautiful, just beautiful.
You can say that again.
Beautiful, just beautiful. I mean, look at this next float.
Can we zoom in?
Wow. Beautiful, just beautiful.
You can say that again.
Beautiful, just beautiful. I mean, look at that float.
Can we zoom in? There's the float. What a beautiful root beer float.
Everybody, welcome live studio audience. Happy Thanksgiving. Welcome to everybody watching on them internets. I'm Jeff Durbin. This is Next Week with Jeff Durbin. Like and share the episode. You guys ready to talk? Yes? So here's what's been up this week, guys. A couple days ago, a single mother had to move to a brand new town with her angst-filled teenagers and a need for the Christmas spirit. Sorry, that's just the plot line for every single new Hallmark Christmas movie this season. Every year. It's true. It's true. Hillary Clinton said in an interview with Now This that if it were possible, she would gladly be the president of another planet. And every conservative in America immediately contacted Elon Musk so they could help her with that. In London, get this, buses will be running off of biofuels made with coffee grounds. It's pretty sweet, right? And this will make it fun at the gas pumps. Fill her up, please. Fill her up. Extra cream, extra sugar, please. Gene Simmons, this is amazing. He got banned for life from Fox News this week. Has that ever happened before, Chris?
Not that I know.
Never before, right? Maybe it's a first. So, bummer. Now rock music fans have no reason to watch Fox News. Ever. Does anybody have any reason to watch Fox? I don't know. Conservatives right now across America are very confused. They're like, wait, what kind of show is this? A consistent one, guys. We're sorry. Thanksgiving is this Thursday. Or in my family, as we like to call it, first Christmas. So, and as people like to call it now, the warm-up dinner to Thursday night shopping. And fights. And fights and violence, right? Black Friday. Black Friday is expected to have great deals on all sorts of things every year, right? Studios in Hollywood are hoping to find some good deals on wholesome producers. Don't know if they'll find that, though. Following the time-honored tradition, President Donald Trump pardoned 2 turkeys earlier today. Liberals were pretty upset, though, because he named both turkeys Joe Arpaio. Now, if you missed the turkey pardon, I'll fill you in on what happened. Trump bragged about how he picked the biggest, most amazing turkeys, and then he tried to appoint both of them to office. The plan was for the turkeys to go straight to their new home in Virginia, where they would live out the rest of their lives in peace. But Robert Mueller took them into custody first to talk about the Russia connections. And, of course, in the spirit of Thanksgiving, we decided to do a very special segment. You guys excited about this one? It's a segment we like to call, Here's Your Church Sign.
Here's your church sign. What's that say?
Gets me every time, Chris, every time. Now, sometimes church signs say things wrongly, and the holidays, of course, are no exception to the rule. Every sign that we're going to show you is real. Just remember that. Let's get the first one up, guys. Here's what it says. This sign says, Happy Thanksgiving. But when do they celebrate Thanksgiving? October 13th. And the spelling is also wrong, the date's wrong, and just so you know, they got justification by faith wrong too, so. It's true. Now, here's a church that has the dates wrong, but also other things wrong. Let's check this one out. Thanksgiving holidays where? Closed. 19th. Throw 23rd. This sounds more like a football play than a Thanksgiving invitation. Now, when it comes to Thanksgiving, most churches serve what? Turkey, right? It's a staple of every Thanksgiving dinner, right? This one decided to do a different kind of dinner. It says, best sausage supper in St. Louis, come and eat Pastor Thomas Resler. They should change their name to Cannibalism Christian Church. Come join us at CCC. Now, here's another kind of food that wasn't supposed to be there. It says, God doesn't make mistakes. No, God doesn't, but Myron the sign maker does. Now, here's a Thanksgiving one. It reads, Thanksgiving is not a day, it's a lifestyle. Except it is. It is a day. Now, here's another sign. It reads, Behold, I'm making all things ew. Ew. And lastly, if you're looking for a church for the holidays, you may not want to go to Faith Community Church. Take a look. Now, a lot of people wouldn't want to go there, I understand. But if you gotta go, you gotta go. We'll be right back, guys, right here next week with Jeff Durbin. Be sure to share and like the episode. We're talking about the real history of Thanksgiving today, and we'll be right back. Apologia All Access is Apologia Church's opportunity to have a farther reach into the world with our proclamation of the gospel, our defense of the gospel, our engagement of the culture. And I pray, God, today that you would move in a mighty way, Lord God, to open the eyes and hearts of these people and draw them to your Son. So again, it's back to who do we believe, Jesus or Joseph? What it is this. People who are fans of our ministry, who learn from our materials, they partner with us. They join together with Apologia Church. They donate $7.95 a month. And when they donate, they participate with us in ministry, making all of this possible. The studio, our reach into the world, our evangelism, our special television show, our videos, everything that we do to communicate the gospel around the world. We began to go across the island and we saw the cults everywhere. There's a real opportunity to bring the gospel in a powerful way here.
Ultimately, our goal is to create television programming that glorifies Christ in its quality, but can also engage the culture in its conversation.
If I'm a Christian, if I believe in my Lord Jesus Christ, it stays with me in all areas of my life. That means if I'm in business, if I'm in politics, it stays with me. I like you a lot.
With Apologia TV and After Show, we have guests like John Frame, Dr. James White, Ken Ham, and Denny Burke, with more guests added every week. And we discuss relevant news, information, and issues. We cover a wide breadth of topics, everything from abortion to apologetics to cults like Mormonism and Jehovah's Witnesses to biblical theology and Reformed theology.
Foreknew, predestined, justified, glorified, links forged by God in this golden chain.
So when you sign up for All Access, you get the weekly television show, the after show, you get Apologia Academy and all the advanced theological training, and you make all the additional content that we put out possible.
There is evil and suffering in the world. So what? Nothing is ultimately evil in an atheistic worldview. So what?
So the content we're able to put out, to reach into the world with the gospel, is made possible by you, our All Access partners. Hey! Happy Thanksgiving, guys. Welcome back to everyone watching across social media. Thank you to our live studio audience, guys. Welcome back to next week. Hey! Guess what time it is? Blend of the week. Now, of course, since it's Thanksgiving, we have a Thanksgiving Day blend. This is called Thanksgiving Dinner Coffee. It's the coffee that you awkwardly sip the moment your liberal cousins start talking about our new president. This is what that is. Now, it's that time of year again, y'all. That time of year where we stuff our turkeys, we stuff ourselves, and after we take a nap and stuff ourselves again. Thanksgiving is a wonderful time to watch grown men in sheer terror pray that they don't let go of that Thanksgiving Day parade float. Best part of Thanksgiving. Now, we gather together to praise our friends for getting with the program and finally putting up their Christmas decorations. Congratulations. The rest of us have had ours up since February. So now, it's actually true in my house. In the holidays, we also endure the secularists, humanists, and liberals rewriting history as they try and make this Christian holiday a little less Christian. You know, the same thing they do with Christmas, Good Friday, and Resurrection Sunday, American government, and basically everything good that the West gave them. But they can't. They can't take Christ out of Thanksgiving, guys. Because not only is he the foundation of everything we ought to be thankful for, he actually is the reason for Thanksgiving as a holiday. Thanksgiving, if you didn't know, is an explicitly Christian holiday. Explicitly. That's right. Now, contrary to the absurd and revisionist history that these ladies suggest.
Happy Thanksgiving, America. I'm Donna, and I'm here with my friends to tell you the real history behind this holiday. Growing up, I knew that what they told you in school about Thanksgiving wasn't true. That's not the true story. The true story behind Thanksgiving was, after every killing of a whole village, these European settlers celebrated it, and they called it Thanksgiving. But it wasn't until Abraham Lincoln became president that it became an official holiday.
He ordered 38 Dakota men to be hung for war crimes after the sacred holiday Christmas.
We take this time to remember our elders who lost their lives due to what really happened. Usually my mom makes a Native American dish for us and we pray.
Growing up, I would be kind of annoyed that they didn't know what actually happened on Thanksgiving and that they're actually celebrating the deaths of many people and many tribes that were lost.
Whether it's to give thanks or to be with your family, you should learn how the holiday was established in the first place.
I'm thankful for being born indigenous to this continent.
I'm thankful that I still have my culture.
I'm thankful that my elders kept our culture alive all these years.
I'm thankful to be indigenous, resilient, and alive.
I'm thankful for us all to be able to stand together, stand strong, and stand as one.
Happy Thanksgiving, America.
That is honestly, yeah, you can moan at that. That's incredible beyond words. I mean, those people literally just sat at a table and made stuff up. Now, I mean, we could do that. In fact, we did. Take a look.
In 1843, there were more cows than there were people. And then we stopped eating just vegetables.
In 1973, Abraham Lincoln bought a lawnmower and mowed the lawn of his neighbor, John Wilkes Booth. John Wilkes Booth kindly paid him and thanked him.
My family is German by blood, but kind-hearted librarians in their hearts.
Josiah Johnson was originally going to write the United States Constitution, but he was outvoted and removed from Congress when he was determined to write it on toilet paper.
Mount Rushmore was originally the dwelling place for rock people until the 1970s, when people got into pet rocks.
In the 1800s, a man by the name of Joseph Smith was visited by the angel Moroni.
See how easy that is? It's easy, guys. It's too easy. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm as much of a fan of the United States government and the atrocities that they have committed as Hillary is a fan of Donald Trump, or as Trump is a fan of complex vocabulary.
15 months ago. Did you know that? Does anyone know that? He's a citizen of Canada. So he's a joint with the United States. So he's a citizen of Canada. And they said, you know, you're a United States Senator. You're a citizen of Canada. Somebody found out. These reporters, they ultimately find out everything, whether we like them or not, right? Much of it's false stuff, but this happens to be true. He's a citizen of Canada. And they said, you're a citizen of Canada. Oh, I didn't know. So he just said the other day, they said, how could it be that you were a citizen of Canada? He said, he didn't know about it. Okay. So he didn't know he was a citizen of Canada. And there are advantages to being a citizen of different places. You understand that. So he didn't know he was a citizen of Canada.
Citizen of Canada. Now, if we acknowledge the evil actions of the United States government against, say, the Hawaiian people and stealing Hawaii and destroying the Christian Hawaiian kingdom, or against many of the Native American tribes, does that mean we have to also abandon the real history of Thanksgiving for that deliciously coined term of our president, fake news? Now, people shouldn't have the right to ruin this Christian holiday. Ruin it like this kid.
Then get out! What are you, I'm not part of the family the way you act.
Oh boy.
I'm not part of the family? No! You don't act right, you're not part of the family.
Whoa!
Oh! You threw a turkey at me? Don't blow up!
Oh my.
And you're filming?
Now, I bet the family talked about the weather a lot for the rest of the day. Now, here's the truth. The truth is, God is sovereign. He's in control of all things, and history is going where He wants it to go. And God isn't done telling stories. Now, sure, He isn't telling them in the same way He did by giving us a divinely inspired written record like the Bible. However, His masterful divine storytelling is present in the true history of Thanksgiving. The real history of this Christian holiday starts with an amazing Christian who spent some time in Spain and in London. Now, by the way, this is important. He wasn't white. That's right. The reason for Thanksgiving is because of a Patuxet Native American named Squanto. In the 1600s, Squanto was 12 years old when he and some friends were kidnapped in Massachusetts by the Spanish, and they were brought across the ocean to Spain. Now, when these evil, furry-faced men sold Squanto, in God's providence, he was sold to some monks. And these monks fed Squanto, they assured him of their kindness towards him, they told him about Jesus, and they promised him that they meant him no harm. They knew about Squanto's plight, and they worked to get him back home. Now, after some time, the monks worked to get him north to London, where he could catch a ride back to his home. And while in London, Squanto was taken in by a Christian family who taught him English, and they helped him to get work, to get enough money to get on a ship to go home. Now, after a while of being away from home, Squanto boarded a ship and sailed westward. When Squanto returned to his home, he discovered that the fields weren't tended and his village was completely empty. He went to a neighboring tribe and was told that a sickness had swept through his tribe and killed literally everybody. Now, by God's grace, Squanto's life was actually preserved because of his slavery. Now, this is where God's masterful storytelling can be seen in vivid color, guys. Around the time of Squanto's plight of kidnapping, slavery, and redemption, there was a group of Christians we know as the Pilgrims. Now, there are a lot of misconceptions about the Puritans, guys, and this is, of course, how the humanists remember them.
Fire it up, boys.
Ha ha! See you in hell, Seymour.
Goodbye, Mother.
How horrible.
If they're really witches, why don't they use their powers to escape?
That sounds like witch talk to me, Lisa.
Never mind.
That about does it, right? Now, However, these Reformed Christians were not the cold, lifeless, fun Nazis that they are often portrayed to be. As a matter of fact, the Puritans had a passion for life, beauty, and the lordship of Jesus over all things. Now, did you know that they even had more beer on the Mayflower than they had water? They loved their beer. So they were basically like hipsters. They were. Except Puritan beer wasn't gluten-free. Now, the first major build of their colony was the local pub. Believe that. They had been oppressed and persecuted by their government, and they desired to go west and establish a free Christian civilization. Now, make no mistake about it, their plan was to extend the kingdom of God to this part of the world. Things started to go south on their voyage over, so they bound themselves together by a covenant document known as the Mayflower Compact. Now, any question about the explicitly Christian origins of our nation can be immediately refuted by reading this document. Now, here's what it says. In the name of God, amen. We whose names are underwritten, the loyal subjects of our dread sovereign Lord King James. Dread King James? I gotta admit, I like to imagine they said it like this.
The great pirate Robert is here for you, sir.
That scene from The Princess Bride is brought to you by all Christian homeschoolers. Now, continuing with the Mayflower Compact, it says, by the grace of God, of Great Britain, France, and Ireland, King, Defender of the Faith, etc., having undertaken for the glory of God and advancement of the Christian faith, and honor of our King and country, a voyage to plant the first colony in the northern parts of Virginia, do by these presents solemnly and mutually in the presence of God and one another, covenant and combine ourselves together in a civil body politic. Now here's the thing. They barely made it through the first winter. Barely. Now most of their people died according to sickness and starvation, and they struggled with the new land that they had come to that they were unfamiliar with. And then one day, this is amazing, out of the forest walks Squanto. He walked up to these Christians and said in perfect English, "Good morning, my name is Squanto." Talk about freaking people out, right? They probably thought they were dead already. Now, the Pilgrims were shocked to hear their language coming out of the mouth of this Native American. Now, Squanto told the Pilgrims his story, and the Pilgrims shared their story with him, how they lost everything, and they were literally on the brink of death. Now, Governor Bradford was the governor of that first colony, and he told Squanto that he believed God had raised Squanto up like Joseph in the Bible. Joseph was sold into slavery and was used by God to preserve the lives of his people and to keep them from starving. Squanto loved the English Christians who had taken care of him, and he embraced the Christians in the colony and taught them how to plant corn by using the remains of fish. He taught them how to capture eels in the streams and how to catch lobster. Sounds like a New Englander, right? Lobster, right? Now, he saved their lives, literally saved their lives. And because of their newfound intimate and peaceful relationship and God's providence in preserving their lives through Squanto, they had, and this is the true story, their very first Thanksgiving feast. Now, about 90 American Indian braves showed up for the first Thanksgiving. They brought food, they brought deer, and at the feast, Governor Bradford prayed, and he thanked God publicly for all that he had done in sending Squanto to rescue them. Now, listen to this. Similar to the story of Joseph in the Bible, God allowed Squanto to be kidnapped and brought into slavery. And while away from his home, his entire family and tribe was wiped out because of sickness. God spared Squanto's life. Now, his entrance into slavery led ultimately to his freedom after being introduced to the message of Jesus. God brought English Christians into his life. These people loved him, cared for him, fed him, and they helped him to find his freedom. It was this very special relationship with these English-speaking Christians that gave Squanto such a grand affection for the English pilgrims that landed at his home. Now, similar to the story of Joseph, God allowed Squanto slavery to lead to the preservation of many people. Now, without Squanto, these Christians were virtually guaranteed to die. And history tells us that Squanto loved and helped these Christians literally until his death. The story goes that he spent more time with the Pilgrims than he did with his own people. And on his deathbed, Governor Bradford recorded that Squanto said to him, "Pray for me, Governor, that I might go to the Englishman's God in heaven." Now, in the book of Genesis, many years after being sold into slavery by his brothers, after spending time in jail, and after Joseph rescued Egypt and the surrounding area from famine, Joseph's guilty brothers came to Egypt and they were confronted with their own guilt after what they had done to Joseph. And he said to them, "And now do not be distressed or angry with yourselves because you sold me here. For God sent me before you to preserve life. So it was not you who sent me here, but God." Amen. Now, leftists and cultural Marxists are always trying to mess up God's story, whether it's in mangling the text of Scripture or engaging in historic revision, as you've seen today. They embrace their hostility toward God, they revolt against God's goodness and blessings, and they end up telling substandard stories that are nowhere near as good as the real thing. Now, I'll stick with the true story about Thanksgiving. It's a much better story. God's just a better storyteller, guys. And my friends, it's a story that makes this Christian truly want to give thanks. We'll be right back, guys. Stay with us. Welcome! Look at that lively studio audience, guys. Welcome back to Next Week with Jeff Durbin, guys. So, God has used a lot of people in my life to shape my thinking, to encourage me, to sort of change the course of my life and sort of bolster my commitment to God's Word and really seeing what it actually says. And one of those, the list is actually relatively short in terms of people who I really consider heroes of the faith and people that have really are directly responsible for the ministry that I am involved in. And one of those people is Gary DeMar. We call him Uncle Gary. He's senior fellow with American Vision and was past president of American Vision. He has a new book. It's called Wars and Rumors of Wars. We're having him on today on this Thanksgiving episode because Gary is well known for his work in the history of Christianity in the United States, biblical worldview, biblical law. And so please welcome to Next Week, Gary DeMar.
Thank you.
What's up, Uncle Gary?
Just a bunch of stuff, still trying to, deal with what's going on in the world and trying to get Christians involved in every area of life. And hopefully they're seeing all the things that are going around them today as a fulfillment of 2 Peter 3, where Paul tells Timothy, they will not make further progress, for their folly will be obvious to all.
There you go.
And Paul gives then instructions on what to do while we're seeing the collapsing, unbelieving worldviews collapse around us, is that we just continue on with what God has called us to do in every area of life.
Now, Gary, one of the really dramatic impacts you've had on my life is early on. I wasn't raised in a Christian home, and so when I really got into church and went to Bible college even, the eschatological view or the view of end times that I held was really the popular view of the day, sort of codified in a Left Behind series, books by Tim LaHaye, and those sorts of things. As I was really rediscovering what the Bible said, really for the first time for me in terms of just saying, what does the text say? One of the books that I read was End Times Fiction. It's just a little book you wrote, End Times Fiction. It was really a response to the Left Behind series, and that set me off on really a whole new course, discovering really the eschatology of the Puritans, more of a historic, biblically rigorous view of eschatology, of the future. And so you have spent so much time in your life and ministry, Gary, trying to develop biblical worldview in believers and trying to develop an optimistic view of the future, the kind of view of the future that tries to impact every realm with the gospel. And so you wrote a book called God and Government. You've spent a lot of time really trying to challenge the popular eschatologies of the day. Gary, why are you involved in that kind of work? Why spend your time in trying to develop a rigorous, consistent biblical worldview and face all of this stuff around us when the world's just going to burn anyways?
Well, when I first started getting into this worldview issues and did my series on God and government, when I went out to speak on these issues, I would find people in the audience bringing up the eschatological issue, and they would say, wait a minute, we're living in the last days, this is the terminal generation, Jesus is coming back in our lifetime. And so any effort being put into trying to change the world would be like rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. Why are we wasting our time?
Right.
So I got into the eschatological side of things from two realms. First was what the Bible had to say about these things, and also secondly by history. Because if you go back and look at the history of our nation, you go back to the Pilgrims and the Puritans, there's almost no speculation regarding eschatology. All of their original documents, they put their lives on the line to come over here to start a brand new world. I mean, if they actually believed that the world was going to be coming to an end in their day, they wouldn't have gone to Holland at first, and then they wouldn't have come to what is today America second, because they would have thought, well, Jesus is coming soon. Look how bad things are for us. I mean,
right.
The religious institutions of the day were persecuting them. The political side was persecuting them. Things that are going on in our day today were going on back then, but their eschatology was such that it motivated them to build a city on a hill. And we need to, this Thanksgiving, we should remember what their emphasis was.
Absolutely. And with that in mind, too, I mean, just speaking about worldview, Gary, it's a good question to ask. You spend even a lot of time not just dealing with sort of the government issues and the historical context of the Puritans and really Christianity, the eschatology. You've spent a lot of time even trying to develop a rigorous apologetic against sort of an atheistic or agnostic, secularist, humanist worldview. And it's a good question to ask. What, pray tell, would the atheist have to be thankful for, or who is he thanking, right?
Well, that's a good question, and basically they're just thankful. They could, and anything that they are truly thankful for is borrowed from the Christian worldview. I don't know if you heard, I don't know if it was yesterday, that Sarah Huckabee Sanders she wouldn't allow anyone that was questioning her from the press to ask a question until they stated what they were thankful for, which a lot of course, liberals were upset about that. How dare she do that? But it was interesting to hear some of the things that they said. They're thankful for their wives or their husbands, or they're for their family and friends and so forth. And so that's the fruit of a Christian worldview. There isn't anything to be thankful within an atheistic worldview. The things that come at you are simply the motions of time and matter coming together and bringing about things that may be painful and might be pleasurable, but you can't add any sort of moral basis to those things. And so anytime an atheist talks about being thankful, and you have to ask, where did this concept of thankfulness come from? It certainly didn't originate in the early, goo to you type evolutionary process. Thankfulness is something that comes from the heart, but there is no heart within atheism. There's simply we're simply meat machines.
Right.
And so the unbeliever has a real problem with thankfulness, because there's really no one ultimately to thank, and the idea of thankfulness can find no basis for you. There's no way to account for it within a secular matter-only worldview.
That's right. And I think one of the beautiful parts of, say, Thanksgiving, these moments, these bright and shining moments in the unbeliever's life, is that in those moments they're imaging God. They're showing really who they know they really are, and it's really a beautiful thing. So I don't want to diminish the value of having an atheist be thankful, but it's a good point that only the biblical worldview provides a meaningful foundation for thankfulness in the first place. So enjoy your turkey, atheist.
Yeah.
So another good thing to talk about here, Gary, would be in terms of, you mentioned the Pilgrims, going to Holland. They saw that their children were being impacted by the culture. They weren't okay with what was happening, so they went back. And now, okay, we're making a trip westward to create a civilization for the glory of Jesus over on this new continent. Now, they viewed all of life under the lordship of Jesus Christ. They didn't compartmentalize like many evangelicals do today, where they'll see, this realm over here is a spiritual, that's the church stuff. And then this realm over here, that's government, that's sort of hands-off for Jesus. He doesn't really have any authority there. Can you just talk for a bit, because you wrote a wonderful book, a delicious book, God and Government. Make sure you guys get it, by Gary DeMar. Talk about that, just in terms of how they viewed all of life under the authority of Jesus. They didn't compartmentalize like many evangelicals do today. They saw everything under the rule of Jesus, and everything was touched by his authority.
Well, first of all, like in the God and Government series, they recognized that God was the governor of all things, and they also recognized that to be a responsible subject of God himself, we had to exhibit self-government under God. And then the family came next, and then the church, and then the civil sphere, and everything in between. And so one of the first things that they did when they came to create this colony was, of course, they established a church or place of worship, but they also established schools. And almost every colonial college, from Harvard and Yale and Rutgers and Columbia, which was called King's College. I believe every colonial college was established, by these Puritans. Now, they understood that if you're going to perpetuate a Christian worldview, you have to be trained in the process of doing all of that. Now, unfortunately, there was a kind of a mixture of kind of classical education in with all that, but they understood that if you're going to have dominion for the next generation, you had to raise up in this generation by laying, as the Harvard rules and precepts stated, you had to lay Christ at the bottom as the only foundation of knowledge.
Yeah.
And other than the University of Pennsylvania, all of the early colonial colleges were established with Jesus Christ as the foundation of their educational pursuits.
Very good. And you've actually directly impacted so many people in terms of biblical worldview thinking and in terms of education. Talk for just a moment here about the importance of, because they did it then, it was just assumed that the church is sort of leading the way for education. Public schools weren't really a thing. Talk just for a moment about the importance of Christian education for our children over against a public school system.
Well, early on, it's unfortunate that many of the colonists did get the state involved in education, but they assumed that they were going to control the state. And over time, I think with a kind of a dualistic worldview, you began to see this in Harvard. They began to separate the religious, from the more so-called academic secular side of things. And so you had these two tracks that people were involved in. So you had the religious over here and you had the secular over here. That wasn't the way Harvard and Yale and what today is Princeton were set up. But over time, that's what ended up happening. And so people felt comfortable with the government getting involved because generally the nation was Christian. I mean, even many of our founders like John Adams, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, weren't what we would call today evangelical Christians. I mean, certainly Jefferson wasn't, but they understood that God was at the center of things, and you can see this in for example, their Thanksgiving declarations.
Right.
And so over time, however, Christians felt comfortable in allowing the state to be involved in education because it was fundamentally Christian in the early days. When I went to high school, I mean, we said the Lord's Prayer and had a Bible reading every morning, but that was it. But most people went to church on Sunday. We were this Jewish family that went to synagogue on Saturday. The nation was kind of had a civil religion, and public education was somewhat moralistic in its Christian outlook until the early 1960s, when Madalyn Murray O'Hair came in and began to challenge Bible reading in the public schools and also prayer. But the government has made it difficult for Christians to understand all of this, and they've made it easier for them to believe that they're getting a free education. And so a lot of Christians have kind of, sold themselves on this idea, well, we can modify what's being taught in the educational system by, Wednesday evening service, Sunday morning, Sunday school, and so forth. But that is just plain impossible.
Yes, it is.
And I think a lot of Christians also kind of have a nostalgic understanding of public education because they came up through it and they're fine. But today, public education or government education is purely secular. There isn't a Christian stripe anywhere in the public school system.
That's true. That's true. So last thing here, Gary, just the other day I saw a clip of you on a Christian television program, and you were talking about your book, Wars and Rumors of Wars, your new book, and I don't think that the hosts really knew who they were talking to.
And that's not the first time. I remember going to Kansas City, this was a number of years ago, and the producer of the show said, Gary, we want you to come and talk about eschatology. And I said, are you sure? And she says, yes, I've got it all worked out and you're going to come. So I fly in and I go to the studio, and then the host of the show says, now, what are we talking about today? And the producer said, we're going to talk about Bible prophecy. She says, absolutely not. So here I flew all the way to Kansas City, and I sat down, and we ended up coming up with a completely different show. And providentially, it turned out well. I ended up talking about my God and Government series. So I don't understand. We sent them 5 copies of Wars and Rumors of Wars, and I said, look, are you sure this is the topic you want to talk about? I can talk about other things as well. I said, no, this is good. And so everybody who's kind of commented on it, can see that the hosts of the show either weren't aware of my position, or was only aware of some of my position, but it just kind of showed that they weren't really up on what I was all about. It turned out very well. They were very gracious, said they were going to have me come back on again. I'm not real sure that's going to take place. But it was a fun 10 minutes, and I got to visit some friends in Pittsburgh. I grew up in Pittsburgh and ate at some of my favorite restaurants.
Right on. That's when you had that. You had like an afro, and you were like lifting weights constantly, right?
Yeah, that was a long time ago. I was in much better shape, but I can still do 40 push-ups, so I'm okay.
Well, good. So Wars and Rumors of Wars. That's a new book. Where can people go to get it?
They can go to AmericanVision.org, AmericanVision.org, and order it there. I believe it's also on Amazon. And if you want to watch the clip, if you go to my Facebook page, you'll see the 10-minute clip. It really turned out very well. A lot of people were very appreciative of it and made some very good comments on it as well. And then you can tell your people to contact the folks at Cornerstone TV and say, hey, you really like that 10-minute clip that Gary DeMar was on. We want you to have him back and spend a whole lot more time discussing the topic of eschatology.
That's right. Give Uncle Gary 1 hour to talk about Matthew 24 and then freak everybody out.
Yeah. Cornerstone TV. Send him an email.
That's right. All right. Hey, one last thing, Gary. When you come back out, let's get dinner again, okay?
Yeah, oh, yeah. My treat next time.
Oh, sounds good. All right, brother.
Though.
All right, well, happy Thanksgiving, man. Thanks for joining us on the show
same
today.
To you. See you.
All right, God bless you. Thank you, Uncle Gary, everybody. Give him a round of applause. All right, guys, thank you very much. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Important stuff next, guys.
Sign up for Apologia All Access right now. You'll get shows, after shows, and Apologia Academy. And if you don't, I'll jump. I have weak knees. So this is a lot scarier than it looks. Okay?
Live across social media right now. Make sure you guys share this episode. Share the true story of Thanksgiving. Wasn't that amazing, guys? It's an amazing thing. Thank you to our live studio audience. As everybody knows, EndAbortionNow.com is the heart and the center of all that we do right here on Next Week. God has done an incredible thing this last year with End Abortion Now. We have over 260 local churches across the country that are involved with us with a consistent message, with the gospel, going to the local abortion mills, saving lives, caring for the needs of mothers and fathers, and, of course, Christians speaking consistently to their legislatures across the United States. It really has been powerful. So we have an encouraging story for you guys, so don't go away. We just got word from some of those Christians, actually, that are joined up with us in Pennsylvania, and they sent us some pictures. Twins saved from the work that we're doing right now with EndAbortionNow.com. So when we began as Apologia Church getting involved in this work, some of the greatest resistance and really hostility towards this work that we had actually received was from professing believers across the country. People would say things to us, they would say things like, well, is that even effective? Is this really the right way to reach these women, these mothers and fathers? Are you really accomplishing anything? And the truth is, we believe that every time the good news about Christ and his salvation goes out, every time it's meaningful, it's effective. But in truth, you can see in moments like this, when you look at these pictures behind me of these babies saved from death, you see that yes, God uses the message and he saves lives. And so you can join with us to do the very same thing. You just go to endabortionnow.com, you get connected, you get free training, you get free resources, and you join with churches across the United States going out to save lives. Thank you guys very, very much. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. God bless you guys. Thank you for watching Next Week with Jeff Durbin, guys. We'll see you next week.